Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. The question seems to come up, or better, it doesn't come up in a lot of these lawsuits that are flying around, and that is the question of damages. In every lawsuit, there is two questions, essentially. One, did someone do you wrong? And two, how much money do you deserve in response? Courts used to be split into courts of law and courts of equity. Law would give you damages, money damages. Courts of equity would give you other things like restraining orders and things like that. But today, when people are filing these lawsuits, they're filing these lawsuits asking for maybe a little bit of equity, but generally speaking, they're looking for money. They're looking for damages. They're looking for a legal remedy, a remedy at law, damages, dollary dues. So how do you figure out how much you're entitled to? Well, in a personal injury case, you look at, obviously, in a personal injury case, you say the other person did a wrong. The wrong thing that they did is they rear-ended my car with their car. I apologize for the noise in the background. I got the smoker going. So they rear-ended my car with their car, and it injured me. I got injured. So my damages are the amount of money I'm out as a result of my injuries, plus any future medical expenses that I'm going to have to pay, plus any pain and suffering that's on top of that, plus any lost wages where I wasn't able to work because of the injury and or the accident. And that's kind of generally speaking, what you're looking at with personal injury. And the same is really true with a case like a 1983 lawsuit. You're still looking at the same sorts of things. And some of the things are really easy to quantify. Like how much did I lose? Well, I work 8 hours a day. I get paid, I don't know, insert dollar amount here, $50 an hour. And so that's $400 a day. And so I didn't work one day, so I'm out $400. So you need to pay me $400. My medical bills total $2,000. So you need to pay me $2,000. And pain and suffering, well, that's a little harder to quantify because, there's no real dollar sign attached to that. You don't get a receipt for it. So you gotta kind of estimate. So the estimate that you would normally give in a personal injury, and in a case like this, I would imagine, is about 3 times. You multiply the special damages by 3, and that's generally speaking what you're looking at. So if you paid $2,000 in medical bills, you multiply that by 3, that's about $6,000 in medical bills, plus the $400 that you would have made had you been able to work that day. And bada boom, bada bing, generally speaking, 7 times out of 10, that's about what you'd be looking at, about $6,400 when you go to mediate that settlement. Assuming there's 2 competent attorneys on each side, one competent attorney on each side, you're probably going to get around $6,400. That's generally speaking, at least in California, what you get. Now, that doesn't mean that you're always going to get that, because if it doesn't go to trial, let me step that back. First of all, the amount of money you're going to get at trial is highly speculative. They spend a lot of money for the rich law firms spend a lot of money on researching jury awards. Jury awards, you could get them. Westlaw and LexisNexis have jury awards, and so you could kind of figure out from those how much, generally speaking, what kind of percentage increase on top of the actual medicals, the specials, is the jury awarding. And different areas give different amounts. Some areas are more conservative. Some areas are more liberal. It really depends. I mean, by that, I mean not politically. I mean like more conservative with the awards they give, or more liberal with the awards they give. So that's one variation that you might have. And also there's going to be a difference between plaintiffs. Some plaintiffs are more likable than others. Some plaintiffs you can empathize with more than others. And some defendants are more likable than others. And some defendants are less likable than others. If you have a plaintiff that's very unlikable and a defendant that's very likable, that might, generally speaking, I would bet money that that's going to depress the award. But anyway, long story short is if you go to trial, or if you have an experienced attorney, that's about likely what you're going to get. Now, there's one other kind of award that you might get at mediation, and that's nuisance suit damages or cost of litigation damages. It's where the other side isn't looking at how much they've actually damaged you, but how much it's going to cost them to get out of this fucking thing. If they're looking at $50,000 to go to trial, which isn't an unreasonable number, then they're going to say, well, if we give you $40,000 to go away, we're guaranteed to save at least $10,000. So that's a better deal than giving you $50,000 to go away when we might get our attorney's fees back, or giving you $60,000 to go away when we'd probably win at trial, and we'd probably only spend $50,000 to get there. So you'll see a lot of awards in that $20,000 to $40,000 range, maybe more, maybe less, but you'll see a lot of them in around that range, because that's the nuisance value. That's the cost of litigation value for the lawsuit. Now, you're not always going to get those. Obviously, the defendant has to be willing to pay that kind of money, and usually, at least from what I have seen by looking at these various cases, is they're really only willing to give those up if they done the bad. If they did the bad, then, well, they might as well give you $40,000 instead of paying $50,000 to go to trial, and then having a jury award you, I don't know, nominal value plus attorney's fees, which would be about $50,000, right? So, you might not be out any money. The cops might not have hurt you, and you might only be entitled to, $1 nominal damages. But under 1983, you're probably also liable, or the defendant, if they lose, is probably liable for your attorney fees. And so, that might add up to about $50,000 or more, give or take. Who knows? So it is more likely that they're going to give you that nuisance suit value if you have an attorney and if you have a good case as far as liability is concerned, even if you don't have damages. So long story short, the problem that people like Floyd and Chili are going to run into is that they don't really have damages. Chili didn't even understand the concept of damages, obviously, when you're saying, well, I'm not making any claim for lost wages or lost income or personal injury or mental or emotional damage. I'm not making a claim for any of those, which just ruled out like literally every kind of damages that I think you'd be entitled to, unless there's some sort of contract damages or something that he might be entitled to. I don't know what he would be entitled to. So he's not likely to get anything as far as a settlement is concerned, because, again, there are no attorney's fees for them to worry about. And, if he's not going to be reasonable, the nuisance suit value, well, I don't really think there is a nuisance suit value, because the cops didn't do a wrong, at least in Chili's case. I haven't seen the Floyd arrest, so I don't know. But in Chili's case, the Ohio one, the cops didn't do wrong. So what's he going to get there? Well, he's not going to get anything, because since the cops didn't do wrong, in order to disincentivize future lawsuits like his, they're going to take this all the way, and they're going to spend all the money that it takes to get this dismissed or whatever. And then if they can't get it dismissed, they'll take it to trial, and they'll roll their dice there, because it doesn't look like the cops did anything wrong. It doesn't look like there are any damages, and there are no attorney's fees that they could even possibly be liable for. So they're going to spend $50,000 at most, give or take, to make an example out of Chili. I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand what I've been talking about. In law school, just so you know, they do teach a class called Remedies. It's called Remedies. And it is a half-year class. It's a one-semester class, and they go over all these kinds of remedies. It's important. Now, they also talk about remedies, how much damages you're liable for in other classes. So they talk about it. They talk about how what kind of contractual liability you might have in contracts. And they also talk about quasi-contractual liability in contracts. And then they go over it again in remedies because it's that important. They talk about it. They talk about your monetary damages in torts. And then they go over it again in remedies because it's that important. And it's something that people like Chile don't understand. The amount of money that the lawsuit is worth is tied strongly to the amount of actual monetary damages, dollars and cents that they have cost Chile. And if they haven't cost him anything, well, they're not liable for anything, if that makes sense. Even if they did a bad, which they didn't do. Anyway, hope that makes sense. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.